from the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 30 of Dads From The Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason, and tonight I'm joined by Mondo.
Hello.
And Jody.
Hello.
And returning to us from a galaxy far, far away, we have Galen Howard. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So you've had some big jobs coming on since we've last talked, which I'm sure you're dying to tell us about, but now you can tell us about.
Exactly. Yes. I was. I had to sit. I had to sit on for over a year the fact that I was that I am on 2 episodes of Book of Boba Fett this premiere season.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
So, when you popped up, I hollered, "That's Galen!" And my wife's like, "Who?"
Right, exactly. It's this guy on my computer. Yeah.
No, though I told her who you were. Just, oh yeah, he was great.
He has the best hair in all of Tatooine.
Yeah, I know. I did. I get. They let me keep my my pandemic hair, so that was amazing.
So tell us how that came about.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's one of those stories that there's not a whole lot, to the, to it. It was, or I mean, it came out. The process was fairly simple. It was it came about during the pandemic, and I think it was around October of 2020 that I got the audition, and things were, Of course, there was absolutely nothing for good part of the year, and I think things projects were just beginning to audition around that time in the fall, and so that came through to me, and it was actually I had booked with that casting director before for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Marvel show, so, which was probably one of the only reasons I got the audition, because I don't believe they even released the auditions. Usually they'll release the auditions on in the trades, the online trades, and now but because the show is so top secret, I think they really just have for the most part, they keep most of the breakdowns hidden and just kind of request actors they've seen before. So I got called in that way, and it was at that point they hadn't even released they hadn't even announced the Book of Boba Fett at that point. So
right.
all I got in the breakdown was Untitled Disney Plus Lucasfilm TV show. So you do the math.
Yeah.
You kind of figure out, okay, there's it kind of narrows it down just a little bit. So I knew obviously the world I was in, and I think it was the scene I had was pretty much what you see in the what you see in the show, playing the, it was like, I think the role was like desk clerk, and that's I think that's pretty much what I'm credited as, City Hall clerk. And
we'll have to check the box on the action figure when it comes out. See what they name it.
Dreams. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because when I finished the scene, the director was saying, "Oh, they should make an action figure of you." I was like, "Well, we'll see." But
well, if Gene's guy in the corner can get an action figure.
Hey, everyone, yeah, if they make us, if they make a Commander Porkins, there's hope for everyone. And anyway, so So yeah, so I just it was it was literally 2 lines. I think at that point I had just a friend of mine read the other lines. Of course, in the script they didn't say they didn't list it as Boba Fett. It was I think it was it was like boss or something like that, and in the script, and then so but again you kind of figure out it's someone in that world, and so I basically just did it a couple ways, did it a little heightened, did it kind of flat, and just sent that off. Then about about a week later, I was kind of put on hold for the part, and then offered it. So that was exciting. At first, I thought maybe it's Mandalorian, but then it's you kind again would kind of did kind of figured out because at that point Boba Fett was still had shown up in season 2, so there was thought, well, maybe it's just a continuation of that. There wasn't was no way to know if it was that he was getting his own series. So so that's so that was pretty much how it all came about. The other little bit of drama that kind of happened behind the scenes is that I can say this now, but the week that I got offered the part, I also tested positive for COVID.
Oh no.
Yeah, and so thankfully I was booked a month out. And at that time, because at that time we also we didn't know how long you could have it, or what the severity of it was, any of that. So I was just completely freaked out, and thankfully I got my negative test in time, and
nice.
It was that was a little bit of extra drama, and that was probably the most the scariest part of the whole thing was just that, but yeah, I mean that's basically how it all came about.
And then where did they do the filming?
They shot over they shoot in a studio in Manhattan Beach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did they build the set, or I know for some scenes they use this like whole LED.
It's a combination. They shoot they use a combination of they shoot in what they call the volume, which is what a lot of the Marvel films are using now, a lot of the big budget films, which is basically it's basically a digital it's basically the backgrounds are digitally projected, so they don't have to go into they don't have to recreate those in post effects.
Okay, yeah, because I knew they do that for the outdoor scenes. I wasn't sure how many indoor scenes.
Yeah, so basically, so when you see that scene, basically anything in the foreground is constructed, and then everything in the background is digital.
Okay, yeah, because a lot of scenes take place in that casino, so I was trying to figure out how much of that casino was real and how much. I mean, you can't tell. That's the thing.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. A crew member told me at one point that the backgrounds were so convincing that one of the COVID officers almost approached one of the background images to tell them to put on their mask.
I love it.
I love that story.
That's hilarious. So you got this role, and you obviously can't tell anyone about it.
Correct.
So could you tell your mother? I mean, could you tell your roommate?
Yeah, I told anyone in the inner circle, basically.
Yeah.
And that was about it. Yeah.
It's gotta be a hard thing to say, I'm in Star Wars. It's
and it was also really special because my I grew up. I mean, everyone, of course, grew up with Star Wars, but my my father was a visual artist, was a sculptor, and he around the time I was born, he did a stint at Lucasfilm on Return of the Jedi in the art department.
Oh, cool!
In the model making department, did a number of the helmets in
That's
that.
really cool.
So that was so there was always kind of a legend of that in the family. You know, it was always something very special about that. So it was really cool to be able to kind of continue that forward.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
very cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah, congratulations on that. And
thank
I've been
you.
watching the show and having a really good time with it. So
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool the level of world building they're able to do with all of these with all these continuation series.
do you have anything else coming up you can talk about or not talk about?
At the moment, at the moment, you know, it's just the year's just kind of getting started. I do have a film I shot a while back called Moon Manor. That's kind of a really cool little comedy drama with a wonderful cast. Lou Taylor Pucci, Deborah Wilson from Mad TV, Richard Reilly from Office Space. And so I've got a really fun part in that, and that's coming out at the end of the month.
Cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Before we get to our episode, we do want to talk about our sponsor. We are sponsored by Fright Rags. They make amazing horror sci-fi genre clothing and apparel. Tonight I want to talk about their socks. They have an amazing collection of horror novelty socks. I'm looking at their website right now. They have Silence the Lamb socks with Precious and bottles of lotion on them in the basket.
Oh, fantastic.
And they have Killer Clowns with a clown on it. They have Bela Lugosi socks. They have Elvira socks. They have Tarman socks.
Which clown? Is it the big clown? Is
the
it
big
the tall
one?
clown?
Yeah. I don't know their names, but yeah,
Well,
the big
yeah,
one.
but there's a fat one. There's the really tall one. Yeah.
The big one.
Yeah. Oh, Big Daddy. Yeah.
They're really. I can say they are good quality socks because I have some. I got the Silent Night, Deadly Night a while back, and every Christmas I just put those on, and nobody knows I have Killer Santa Claus socks on while I'm doing all my Christmasing.
I have their Shaun of the Dead socks, and they're
Nice.
super comfy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Now is that Silent Night, Deadly Night 1 or 2?
Just one.
Just
They don't have one for
Yeah,
two
no-
yet, but if
no
they make
garbage
one, I'll
can.
have them.
Yeah.
So that's just an idea of the great quality and unique clothing you can get at Fright Rags. If you would like to make a purchase, we'd appreciate it if you use the code CRYPT10. You get a discount, and it just shows that you listen to the show and that you support us. So we'd really appreciate that. And we thank you for your support. Tonight, we will be discussing Tales from the Crypt episode Top Billing, which came out on June 26, 1991. Jody, give us a plot synopsis.
All right. And as soon as we start, my video feed cuts out. That's okay, though. You don't need to see me. You can hear me. So-
You make a very handsome gear there, so it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. We'll get it back. It'll
All
work again. Anyway, so we start with a really cool Masterpiece Theater parody intro with the music and the bookshelves. And the Crypt Keeper shows up wearing a tuxedo and his little Crypt Keeper feet showing underneath the tuxedo, which anytime the Crypt Keeper's feet show, it's top notch. He introduces this as Mashed to Pieces Theater. Continuing our puns. So anyway, our actual story here. We meet a man, or we start with a woman on the phone. She seems like an agent talking to somebody, and Jon Lovitz walks in. She calls him Leon, and Leon, she asks, where's Jenny? And Leon says, Jenny's dead, and you're next. And then he goes to strangle the woman with a rope, kind of poorly. He doesn't do a very good job of it. He's pretending he's an actor, and this is actually an audition. But he's wrong for the part. He doesn't have the look. Well, we'll hear that a lot in this episode. He doesn't have the look. And this guy's real name is Barry. And as he leaves this audition, he runs into a guy he used to live with named Winton. Winton is much more successful, and he says that what Barry really needs is to quit worrying so much about acting which this being a Jon Lovitz role, I really wish at some point the word acting had come out. It was really disappointing that it didn't. But that this was he needs to quit worrying about acting. He needs to quit worrying about, the craft, the starving artist stuff, and just take some jobs, change up your appearance, go get some contacts, get some plastic surgery. And, he's making tons of money doing commercials. But Barry sees acting as a craft. He wants to be a real actor. And as the conversation ends, Winton says, Lisa deserves better than what you're giving her here. So then Barry goes to his agent, and his agent says that he's talented, but he needs the look, and he doesn't have the look. And so he should just give up on acting. She fires him as a client, and he storms out. Then he gets to his apartment and finds that his girlfriend, Lisa, is also abandoning him and moving out with a guy named Bruno, who she met in acting class. Bruno. We shouldn't talk about Bruno. Thank you.
Well played.
He says he loves her, but it didn't change anything. And then he's also being evicted at the same time. So Barry is just having a bad day, very bad day. So he goes to audition for Hamlet at this very, very out of the way theater, so far out of the way that it doesn't seem to be the theater there. There's just a door down an alley. And when he gets there, Winton is also there to audition. He's just trying to make a point to Barry that he can get acting roles too. What's the big deal? So they're getting ready to leave, though, because there's no theater there, when a weirdo theater guy kind of opens the door. His name is Beeks, and he lets them in. We get to see a troupe or a group of people putting together a show. There's an actor doing the Yorick scene from Hamlet with the plastic skull, and the director is yelling at him. The director is John Astin, aka the original Gomez Addams, or as I know him, Harry Anderson's dad from Night Court. He's got a tiny little mustache and a big furry hat. He's yelling, and it's just every stereotype that you could think of theater actors, which I did some theater acting in high school around some professional actors. You know what? It's pretty true. A lot of weirdos in the theater. It's fine, though. It's fun. But the director yells at Beeks that they've lost another one, and doesn't really elaborate on it. He said, "I need my props." And then he yells at an actor who has no roles. He said, "You're an actor. I command you to act." There's a lot of fun hamminess in this episode.
Yes.
So Barry's like, "Oh, he's a demanding director, but I respect him." And he tells the director he's there to audition. The director yells at everyone to leave, and he brings Barry and Winton to his office. The director's name is Nelson Halliwell, and they're putting together the most amazing production of Hamlet ever. It's going to leave the people spilling their guts out. They're so excited. And he chooses Winton for the role based on the look alone. The role of Hamlet. Barry fumes, and he watches them prepare the set. He starts stalking Winton, and he sneaks up behind him and almost strangles him, but backs out at the very last minute. So Winton kind of mocks him as like, I got this role, you loser. And Barry snaps and strangles him, takes the body backstage, hides it in a laundry cart. So Barry goes up to Halliwell during rehearsal and says Winton had stage fright and left. And Halliwell says, you still don't have the look, but maybe I can just change my interpretation. So we cast him. Then we see Barry running lines backstage when the director and Beeks and the actor we saw earlier, they show up and say, it's time for the final rehearsal. Barry says, well, we haven't had any other rehearsals. Hamlet's a big role. I'm not prepared. So, well, you're not the one playing Hamlet. The actor's like, I'm the one playing Hamlet. Didn't you see me running lines earlier? Find out that Barry is playing Yorick, the skull, on stage in that scene. So Barry runs away. He's figured out these people are insane. And he sees this room marked staff only, starts trying keys, finally gets into the room, and there's a dead man. And you see on the man's shirt that he is an orderly at a home for the criminally insane. We see lots of other dead bodies. These people, there is no theater. There are a bunch of escaped criminally insane mental patients who are running this show. And that's why what keeps disappearing is skulls. Halliwell tells him that Winton looked more the part, but Barry will have to do. And then he attacks him with an axe as he screams. Then we have a close-up of a bloody skull with one eye in it. The actor playing Hamlet acts out the scene, and Hannibal says, well, maybe he did have the look after all. And the episode ends as the police raid the theater and a dog runs away with Barry's skullless head, which is the coolest effect I've seen on the show. A very realistic Jon Lovitz saggy face with no skull in it. So very, very cool ending.
Cool. Thank you, Jody. All right, Galen, you're our guest. Why don't you start us off with our discussion? What'd you think?
Well, of course, and as I've said before, I grew up on this show. I saw this episode many times. I was a huge Jon Lovitz fan growing up, especially due to the animated show The Critic.
Yes.
I
love The Critic.
So I could not get enough of him, and so I think I saw this episode. I was probably 12 or 13, so I already had the acting bug at this point, so a lot of it really kind of naturally resonated with me even at that age. And I think I think this film, like a lot of episodes, this there's a lot of there's a lot of inconsistencies that you pick up later on. It doesn't this was one of my favorite episodes, as a kid. Now looking back, you see a lot of some of the plot holes, certain things that don't quite add up. But I think this, with all of that said, this has a Todd Holland really kind of nails the comic tone of this. The look is so good. The kind of the seediness I'm not quite sure if it's supposed to be set in LA or New York, but anyway, you get this you get that kind of the feel of the city, and how treacherous it is, and how lonely it is for an actor, and the loneliness of the character of kind of the life of the actor. They really nail, while maintaining that kind of perfect tongue-in-cheek tone throughout. And I think I think this is probably one of my favorite casts. I think this is just the casting in this is so fun. They've had nearly every actor they cast is recognizable, and there's everyone from Jon Lovitz to who is known for his role as Master Thespian on SNL. You have John Astin from Addams Family, Louise Fletcher from Cuckoo's Nest, which kind of is a little bit of a foreshadowing in itself. For the twist. So it's just, even down to Paul Benedict from Spinal Tap, and it's just a fantastic cast. Everyone is memorable. Everyone makes the most of their character. There's a lot of these episodes where there's a lot of characters that are just forgettable. Everyone in this cast shines, and I think it's just, while it doesn't hold up as well as it did when I saw it as a kid, it's still so much fun.
Yeah, actually, this has got to be one of the most interesting casts.
Absolutely.
I'm going to jump in here because this is probably one of the top Tales from the Crypt episodes of all time for me. This is at least top 5, not top 3. This is the one I remember probably the best watching as a kid. The twist is so well done. Taking like a classic piece of literature, even pop culture, everyone knows To Be Not To Be Seen. Like, everyone knows that's ubiquitous, and kind of giving this great gory twist that's so at the heart of Tales from the Crypt. Again, talking about the cast, this was directed by Todd Holland, who did like Erie, Indiana, Amazing Tales. He was directing episodes of Twin Peaks around this time. He did Malcolm in the Middle. He did the Larry Sanders Show. He also directed one of my favorite movies as a kid was The Wizard, which introduced the world to Mario 3.
Oh yeah.
Which is a huge deal at the time, and the
I
Power
remember
Glove
that,
and
yeah.
everything.
I saw that film in the theater.
And I watched that. I don't think I saw. I was pretty sure I saw it on video, but I recently watched it just by happenstance for the first time. It got to be at least 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I think
It's actually really
1990 it
heavy.
came out, yeah.
It's actually really heavy drama with a bunch of. It's basically Rain Man for kids, with all the drama of Rain Man, but
Right.
with kids and video games.
I will say that the biggest sin of The Wizard, though, is that it made the Power Glove seem way cooler than it actually was.
Well,
I think Freddy's Dead did an even better job of making the
I
Power
think
Glove
yeah.
cool.
everything made the Power Glove seem
Fair
cooler
enough,
than it
fair
really
But even
was.
like, it's moving to California 10 years ago, we drive up to Palm Springs or the Phoenix or wherever, you pass by Cabazon where those dinosaurs are. And every time I'm like, oh, the Wizard. And then of course we talk about Jon Lovitz. Bruce Boxleitner plays Winston. He was in Tron and Babylon 5 and a ton of things. John Astin is legendary. And he's playing so big in this role. It's so good. It's so good. He was also like the original Riddler in the Batman TV series.
Yep.
Let's see. He was in the Killer Tomato sequels and the cartoon. He somehow got really entrenched in that series, which is amazing. He was in Teen Wolf 2, the Gremlins 2, also the Frighteners.
Yeah, great part in that.
Louise Fletcher as the agent, which again, I didn't, it just, until you said it didn't occur to me, or at least saying out loud, that's like a clue into the episode in and of itself.
Did you ever see the cool slasher she did called Strange Behavior back from the 80s?
No.
Yeah, it's actually a really, really good early slasher. Worth checking out.
There's also in The Exorcist too, which is interesting to say the least.
That is not a good slasher film.
Yeah, it's not a good slasher. That's not a good anything.
Yeah.
Kimmy Roberts, who plays the girlfriend, she was in How Many Shrunk the Kids. She was in Don't Tell Mom Babysitter's Dead. She was also in Twin Peaks at the time. She was in the Tick, and she was the feather duster character in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, she's gone on to do a lot of voice work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's got one of those awesome voices.
Yeah, you always just hearing, who that is. Also, Paul Benedict, who plays Beaks, has a cool voice.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
He was in This Is Spinal Tap. He was in The Jeffersons. He was a character on Sesame Streets, and his last role was in A Mighty Wind.
I love that.
Yeah, and he also, this is funny, he was also in the Addams Family movie that came out in the 90s. He played the judge.
Okay.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
he was in a bunch of he was in a number of Christopher Guest movies. He was also in Waiting for Guffman. He's the gentleman at the end that they mistake for Guffman.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that was.
Yeah, he's great.
And this is interesting. So in the background, while they're kind of rehearsing, there's this guy who's playing the grave digger. And that's all he's kind of doing. He's just kind of pretending to dig a grave. And that's played by Bob Larkin, who was in Friday the 13th, Part 6. Jason Lives as a gravedigger.
That's right.
Oh, yes.
That's cool.
It's a very
Yeah.
specific
he's
time.
the grave
So,
digger.
yes,
Lives,
that's a real specific typecast. And what's also interesting is last episode, we had Tony Goodwin, who also had a role in Friday the 13th, Part 6.
Right.
So there's some casting synergy here. The casting director really liked that movie. But again, overall, a lot of the Tales from the Crypt episodes have to do with a character who wants something. They're being greedy about something or obsessive with something. And most of the episodes, it's about a woman or love or money. Those very basic things. That's kind of a very recycled trope in these series. But this is interesting because it goes after more about this guy wants a recognition. He's going for something greater than that. He's going something a little different. So it's even a good twist on the usual Tales from the Crypt tropes that we've seen up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the few times that he ends up being the bad guy in the end because he commits murder and kind of gets what's coming to him for that. but up until the actual murder, he's a really sympathetic character.
Mhm.
Well,
And usually you don't get that. Usually the bad guys in these episodes are scum from the beginning.
and even with the murder, right? I think everyone's seen that person who works in their industry that's like, I work so hard and they just have everything handed to them.
Mhm.
I sure wish I could kill that guy.
Right. There's almost there's a little bit of a wish fulfillment there. Because there's
Yeah,
always someone
absolutely.
there's always someone that covet for their looks or covet for their charm
Well,
or just how easy things come to them sometimes. I think that's something we can all relate to.
And you know, he definitely feels like that. The other guy is definitely devaluing his craft by the way he
Sure.
takes it. He doesn't take it seriously. He's like, nah, I have this pretty face, so they're just gonna book me. It's all good.
Right. And it's also an interesting commentary on like art versus commerce. Like,
Mhm.
can you make art without it being of value to someone, or art for art's sake? So there's some interesting themes that they're kind of throwing in there, but you're not going to great depths on, but it's kind of there.
Yeah, as much as you can in 25 minutes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jody, what do you think of this episode?
Oh man, this is a fantastic episode. That cast carries a lot of it for me. Jon Lovitz is one of those guys who's always fun to see on screen in any role that he's been in. I like him anything from the devil with his little ears or little horns poking out to the side to The Critic was another one of my favorites growing up too. And so it's fun seeing him do a more serious role, which I don't think I've seen a whole lot of. He doesn't do a lot of joking around in this. He's, for being such a hammy actor, he may be one of the most restrained characters in this entire episode, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Well, though he is like spouting Shakespeare as he's about to commit murder.
The
moment.
moments that he pulls out a little bit of Shakespeare, you get a little bit of that master thespian in there where he kind of goes over the top. You get just a little bit of that. I love that. Little peaks.
That was just a little nod. Yeah.
So that was kind of fun because you have John Astin going way over the top, as he should,
over the top.
And you have Jon Lovitz kind of reining it in.
Yeah. Well, what's really cool is they get to the theater. And everything's obviously just super strange. The director's strange. The cast is strange. Everything's kind of weird. But if you've ever been around the backstage of a theater, you're like, yeah, that kind of feels pretty right to me. Like everyone's a little weird here. It's normal. So even though the alarm bell should be ringing when they get there and they see all this stuff, it's like, okay, this is just the theater. Sure. This is what you can expect.
It's funny that you mentioned that because like when I was in high school, I played football. So I was more in the jock circles, but I was also a real geek. So I didn't like relate to them very much.
Mm-hmm.
So actually I hung out with the theater crowd much more than the jocks. And I just love the oddball characters that, were there, and they threw some great parties.
Yeah, I was a theater kid. So this was my crowd. We didn't, take anyone's heads or anything, but it was fun. It's a very accepting group of people who can just kind of be themselves. So or put on a face for everybody to try to get roles and things like that too. So the weirdness of that I thought was really cool and really fun. And the twist is one of the best twists I think we've seen so far, because something's weird, but I never saw the whole thing about them all being criminally insane and this all being really in an asylum. Like that was a cool twist.
Yeah, I don't remember this episode that well, and it actually kind of took me by surprise at the very, very end of it. I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the script does a really good job, because as I was watching it, I'm listening to see if they ever mentioned that Jon Lovitz and the other guy were up for the Hamlet role. They never actually say that they're up for Hamlet. Yeah. They're just there for a part.
Right. They assume it's Hamlet. They they interpret it. But yeah, no, it's just a ton of fun. Something else. I had something else, but I forgot what it was. I'll think of it in a minute and get back to it.
Mondo, what'd you think?
Can I nerd out a little bit about shout out to Mr. Edom, who's my Facebook friend, who was my senior English AP teacher, who kind of made me fall in love with Hamlet. And nice. There's a lot of really cool little nods to obviously the episode's about Hamlet. Well, it's about Hamlet, but So a couple things in Hamlet, he tells his girlfriend Ophelia to have a antic disposition, to basically act insane, to kind of figure out what everybody's plans are. And it's kind of interesting when you see the setting of being, as you find out at the very end, being a mental institution where they're criminally insane. Also, Yorick was Hamlet's father's his murdered father's. It was his court jester, which is kind of interesting. Jon Lovitz being in that role, being the comedic actor, essentially being the person that gets, becomes the skull of York. And he was, in his real life, you could call him a court jester based on his roles. And also the famous Hamlet speech, the last poor York. I knew him, Horatio. That whole speech was kind of Hamlet looking at this person who he knew as a child and watched his whole life. And now this person is a skull buried in the ground. And it's kind of the idea of Hamlet facing his own mortality and looking at and kind of seeing the cycle of life, how this person was this thriving, jovial person, and now he's a skull on the ground, which can kind of be brought back to this episode. And that was kind of the life of Jon Lovitz's character. So I absolutely adored this episode. I didn't see the ending coming. It took me by surprise. I thought all the performances were fucking amazing. Again, we talk a lot about you have to understand what you're getting into when you take a Tales from the Crypt role, and everyone here 100% understood the assignment, as the kids would say today, and they all killed it, especially Gomez. Man, he was so much fun in his role, and he just looked like he was having a great time too. And so this is a top tier Tales from the Crypt episode for me. Hit on all kinds of different levels. I agree with everything you guys have talked about, which is rare that I agree with Jason. So I'm just kidding.
Well, it's interesting because again, I remembered the twist, and it didn't take away from the episode for me. I still extremely enjoyed it. And it's one of those episodes that sometimes the episodes feel a little bit longer than they are, and sometimes they go by really quickly. This one felt like 5 minutes. It did not feel like 25 minutes.
But in all honesty, after knowing the twist, I kind of want to watch it again now.
Oh, yeah.
Because kind of how Galen was saying, how he picked out a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
I think now knowing the ending, I want to go back and watch it and see what I can pick out. If I pick out any illusions or any, fuck ups. It's just bravo to everyone involved in this episode.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. At the end, the Jon Lovitz face laying on the ground, which is such a cool like special effect. I keep bringing this guy's name up because every time I look up special effects on any of these episodes, this name Thomas Bellissimo shows up, and this dude, I think he's getting better with every episode. It keeps being cooler and cooler effects in these. Like I said, he did like The Mask and Saw, so he went on to big things. But it was just one of those. We thought the episode was over, and then you get that shot of that face laying on the ground, and it's just so good. Like, if you're going to make a face with an eyeball missing and no skull inside of it and make it look realistic, they somehow managed to do that.
Oh.
It looked like Jon Lovitz's face. It didn't look like some plaster thing. It was pretty cool.
It was good. It was a very creepy visual too.
Yeah.
Because you hear the cops, everybody infiltrating the mental institution, and they're just kind of zooming in on the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to have the gag of the dog running into frame and dragging it off, it's fantastic.
Well, and another level on top of that is that's One-Eyed Skull is like a homage to the 70s Crypt movie, Tales from the Crypt movie, with the skull with one eye. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's the cover of that old movie.
That could be too. Yeah.
So it's just a really, really well thought out episode. Sometimes you feel like they kind of rush through to like get the episode out. Like they have a plot and they put it together, but here I feel like they really thought about lots of different aspects.
Yeah, a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of nuance. Yeah.
Okay, I remember the other thing I was going to say.
Damn it, Jody.
I'm scattered today. The whole time, because there's a twist coming because it's Tales from the Crypt, and I thought the twist, because the director said this whole thing about he wanted to have this like. They wanted to blow the audience away, leave them like with their guts on the floor, all the stuff. I thought they were actually doing Hamlet, and in Hamlet, like most Shakespeare, everyone dies at the end, and so I thought all of the actors were going to get killed on stage as part of the play, and that's how like he actually did finally get the role, but then he gets murdered on stage as part of the role. That's what it was. That I was expecting that twist, but then the other twist came back and it was even better.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to when I watched this. I probably learned more about Shakespeare from this episode than I did from school.
I mean, Shakespeare's metal as fuck. So like even the intro to this or to Hamlet is the witches making a concoction while they're chanting something wicked this way comes.
I think that's Macbeth.
Is that Macbeth? Oh, okay, I got it. I got Macbeth and Hamlet mixed up. Damn it. Okay.
That's my theater kidness. I got to be Macduff one.
I was gonna tag my English teacher on this, but I'm not gonna do it because he'll scold me. He's also really good at Wordle. I'm just saying, like he's a two guess kind of guy.
Ooh, I hate those. Galen, were there any like acting moments or like life of a struggling actor that you related to or you want to point out?
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, from the beginning, the process of auditioning, you know, in that first scene is that's that in itself is there's always the joke that it's you act for free and you get paid to audition, and that's pretty much what your job is as an actor, is that the work is getting the work. And so the audition process is they certainly nailed that, as far as just how humiliating it can be, how just soul crushing it can be to put, especially when you're first starting out and you have you put all of this preparation into the work, you fall in love with the character you're auditioning for, and then you do the part. You usually, they elaborate on this for dramatic effect, but they won't even say like, oh, you're not right for the part, or whatever. They'll just say thank you, next, and that's pretty much all you get. And so that but the essence of it is spot on, is that you put your heart into the work, and then yeah, you might be right for the part. As they said in the part, as they said in the room, you're not tall enough. They want someone taller to to pair up with another with another co-star, or someone shorter, or anything. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. And so when he talks about when he emphasizes, there's the joke of, I have talent, and his agent says, yeah, talent's nice too, and that there is some truth to that. It's assumed that you have talent as an actor if you're in the business. That's and it really, there's so much about it. There's so much that goes into the casting process that really has nothing to do with your acting. So I think they really kind of that aspect of it is kind of spot on. It is a lot of it is about the look. Because again, here, if you're auditioning for the part, and especially these days as an actor, when you're submitted for a part, sometimes there can be easily over 1,000 people that are submitted for that role, and so to get an be the one out of the one of 10, 20 people who get the audition is like winning the lottery. So in and of itself, and then so to go through that process at that point, when you're in that top 10, you're you basically are one of the top actors that they're considering for that part. So you do have, it's obvious you have talent at that point. So I think so that whole aspect of it, I think they just got spot on.
Great. Jody, do you want to compare it to the comic?
Yeah. So this came from the Vault of Horror, number 39. It was written by Carl Wessler and drawn by Reed Crandall. And so it's got the same basic concept, but it's set late 1800s or so,
Right.
early 1900s. It's kind of hard to nail it down, but it's in that time that a lot of the Tales from the Crypt type stories are set in the comics. In this, a trio of actors stumbles across the Waltham Theater. They're looking for work, and they all want to go in there and see if there's any work at this theater. And they find a production of Hamlet and dress rehearsal. And Winton's kind of the bold one, and he goes up and asks the director for a part. And he says, "I have a small one, but it's important, so you can have the part." Just like in the show, Barry gets jealous and kills him and says that he left. But in this, there, like I said, there was a trio of actors. And so the director then gives the role to the other guy who's not Barry, named Nash. And Barry kills him too. And he finally gets the part. And while he's in the dressing room, there's an old man there who is collecting. And he shows him what he's collecting. He's got a sack full of human heads. And Barry just kind of like brushes it off like, "Oh, maybe I'm going crazy," which I don't know how you brush that off. Bag full of heads. He opens a window and is like, "Some fresh air. I feel a little better now."
Well, they said he hasn't eaten in a couple of days, so he's just a little hangry.
You know, when I'm hungry, I always see old men with bags of heads walking around my house. That may be a problem.
If that happens, eat a Snickers, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Eat a Snickers.
Yeah, or
his blood sugar was a little low.
Sure. But then the director comes in and tells him he'll be playing the skull. And then we see this all took place at the Waltham Insane Asylum for Actors. So I just thought, it was cool that actors got their own insane asylum. Like that was really considerate.
Is there going to be an insane asylum for IT consultants?
I'm sure if there was an insane asylum for actors, they probably would never be empty. I'm sure that there are folks who could use that spot.
Absolutely. It's yeah. In a way, it's kind of redundant. You just I guess there was probably enough of them there that they just had to give them their own wing.
Anyway, yes, it's pretty much the same story, but I was amused by the insane asylum for actors at the end. And obviously, in the comic, they have two different guys who take the role first, and that would get a little long in a 25-minute show. So trim out one of those extraneous friends and give Winton a bigger part. And
it works to have the rivalry between the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then it gives them room to kind of flesh out Barry's character more.
Right, and I think that's one thing a lot of times they do with the comic is they'll take out any of the extra stuff and add in a little more character work, and that's definitely what they did here. Is more character for Barry, more for Winton. Everyone got a little bit bigger role because in the comic he gets the part and Barry instantly gets jealous and kills him about 2 panels later. Like you just assume Barry's homicidal, but here you see that Barry's kind of been driven to it by Winton's assholery, basically.
Yeah, well, I did like how they had the director in it as well as kind of a big character. It was like a big eccentric.
Yeah, and the comic, the director is just kind of a typical like Tales from the Crypt sweaty looking dude, kind of ragged and sweaty. There's a lot of sweat in these comics.
Oh yeah.
You didn't get the John Astin with his furry hat.
All right. Any closing thoughts on this episode?
Oh yeah, This episode really nails the tongue-in-cheek aspect of it. The one thing that I thought was amusing was in the beginning when they kind of set up the they set up this the sort of the false setup in the beginning, when he enters the room and it turns out to be an audition, and the casting director is just on the phone giving all of this this entire conversation on the phone, presumably in the script, and the fact that she gives him this whole lead in, as he enters the room, which would never happen. I mean, you would just enter the office, you'd introduce yourself, you'd give the line. So to have her just be reciting the script as he enters the room was a little silly. But they kind of took some creative liberties there.
Yeah. I don't think we mentioned it, but the casting director is played by Sandra Bernhard, so that's another great actor.
Comedian Sandra Bernhard, king of comedy. Also a film about a struggling performer. She's fantastic in everything she does. The other, again, not to nitpick, but when he does discover the body in the office, at that point, you would think that at that point the smell would be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have. Yes. He would have. There would be an overpowering smell emanating from that office.
Well, and he does pick up a phone in that office, and somebody's like, "Hey, is everything okay?" And he just kind of like backs up against the wall and doesn't say anything. That would be the time to go, "No, everything's real bad.
Yeah.
Come help."
Yeah, help. Help. Yeah.
Yeah, but
but then they give us a theatricality of him of him cling to the cell bars as he gets axed.
the very shiny axe, by the way, very new axe, I think.
Yeah, well, they've probably been through a couple if they've taken a few heads.
They take good care of their instruments.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. I pretty much can guess what we're going to give this episode, but Galen, what do you rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 5?
I give this a 4.5 for sure. This is again, still despite some of the inconsistencies, this was one of my, as I said, one of my favorite episodes growing up, and I think it still really holds up on for the most part. The tongue-in-cheek aspects of it really carry. So yeah, 4.5.
All right, Jody.
I'm going all the way up to a 5 with this one. I've given more 5s this season than I ever have before, and I feel like we're hitting a peak right now, and that makes me worried because I don't remember what the later seasons are like. But now,
boy. Well,
I'm enjoying.
I feel the same.
They're not great, but enjoy while lasts.
Once you get into 6 and 7, there's some ugs.
I'm enjoying it where we're at right now because it's just hit after hit right now, and so I'm not going to think about the future. Just kind of live in this moment and keep watching the ones that we're on.
It's like right now we're listening to Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets, and,
oh yeah.
But we know that Load is right around the corner.
I will go to bat for Load. I will. That's a hill I'll die on.
You're the guy.
I'm the guy. Mondo, what do you give this episode?
We're going to give this one a 5. I absolutely loved it. And you want to know what? After a long ass 24 hours, I watched it right. I got home from the airport and I'm thinking like, God, I got to slog this episode. And it brought my spirits up, made me happy. So if it does that, I'm a happy camper.
It's a fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm giving this like a 5+, 5 with a star.
No, we can't. You can't break the rating scale because if you do that, you mess everything up.
I know. This is like the one I want to flag as like, when people ask me what my favorite episode is, it's like, this has got to be at least up there. It might not be the best, but it's right there. Okay, that wraps up our review. Mondo, what's our song of the day?
All right,
and, why don't you tell us about your concert?
Oh, I went to Los Angeles to watch one of my favorite artists in the world, Amigo the Devil.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, just at the Belasco in Los Angeles. We flew out there yesterday, went to some breweries, had a little bit too much alcohol, paid way too much money for alcohol, and saw one of the best shows at least top 5 I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And that's a lot of concerts. I'd probably go top 3 even, but it might be some recency bias. But it was the first time he ever actually played with a full band. He's always done just a solo shows by himself.
Right.
Just a phenomenal show. Had the best time. Flew home today, and I'm not in the best shape. I'm just gonna put it that way. My back hurts, my knees hurt, my feet hurt. But wouldn't trade it for the world, man. Like, yeah, you can always make more money. You can always whatever, but you can't always make new experiences. So it was cool and well worth it. So I was going to pick a song by him, but I had to go with there's a little band that you may have heard of, you may not have heard of. They're not that well known. They're called Iron Maiden. And
shout out to Ozzy Andy.
Shout out to Andy. Yeah, and their 7th record was aptly titled "Seventh Son of a Seventh Son," actually based off the Orson Scott Card novel "Seventh Son." But one of my favorite songs on the record, I think it was one of the singles on the record, was "The Evil That Men Do." And the reason why I picked that song is that it's actually taken, the title's taken from Shakespeare, from Julius Caesar, when he's addressing the Romans after Caesar got murdered. Marcus Antonius goes, "The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones." And it took the name "The Evil That Men Do" based on the Shakespeare quote. So sticking with Shakespeare, I had to go with Iron Maiden, who just released Senjutsu last year, which is one of my favorite albums of the year. I wouldn't say my favorite Iron Maiden album, because probably my top 2 are actually Stranger in a Strange Land, followed closely by Seventh Son. But if you don't know Iron Maiden is at this point, like, come on, go check them out.
Mono, speaking of best albums, you did a list recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. You can find it on bloodygoodhorror.com if you want to see my top albums of last year. And realistically, like I said this in my opening paragraph, I'm not a big fan of top 10 lists because it's all my bias. It's all things that I love and like. And I'm sure, like, if most people, if they saw the top 10 lists, they'd say, "What the fuck is this? This band's not good. This band's not good. This is just noise." But it's the things that I love. So hopefully people can check it out and maybe discover a new song or a new band they like.
It's Mondo's list.
Exactly, which I'm okay with.
Yeah, it was a great article. So good stuff to listen to.
I appreciate that, sir.
All right, let's move on to our trivia of the day. Jody.
All right, so Mondo has been talking about Shakespeare quite a bit tonight, which, honestly, I'm impressed with your Shakespeare knowledge.
Yeah, I'm really impressed.
I was going to say I actually have 2 trivia things here, and one of them is that I got an A on my sophomore English report on Hamlet, even though I never actually read the play. So,
oh shit, were you? What was that called? Craig's notes?
I don't remember what I did.
It was
Cliff Notes. Spark Notes. Spark Notes and Cliff Notes. Yeah,
Spark Notes.
Yeah, it may have been some Cliff Notes. I don't remember, but I know there were many things that I didn't do in high school, but I could write a paper. I could pull off a paper even without any knowledge. But I'm going to talk about a different kind of theater because it kind of goes with what I thought was going to happen in this episode. The Theater de Grand Guignol. Are you familiar with the Grand Guignol?
Not by name.
Yeah.
All right.
Enlighten us.
It's a theater that opened up in Paris in 1920. And what they did, they started off just doing kind of melodramas. And in one of the shows, there was a scene where they plucked out somebody's eyeball and they were like, "Oh, let's make this really cool special effect." And the audience ate it up. So they were like, "Oh, people like blood and guts." And so the theater became known for doing all of these short horror stories with they were based on like real life crimes and things like that, and they had all these special effects. So they'd have staging techniques where they'd have like gouged eyeballs that would fly out at the audience, or spurting blood, heads would get chopped off. One thing they really liked doing was making acid melt faces, and they'd put stuff on someone's face with like red on the other side of it and pull it off so it looked like they were ripping off layers of skin. This is 1920, okay? Blood and guts have always sold. It's always been a popular form of entertainment.
Oh yeah.
And and in addition to all of this, in the like between the big murder set pieces and the little crime dramas, they would have little one-act sex farces, and so sex and violence which is your classic combination for horror movies and slasher movies and Tales from the Crypt even. That's sold in 1920. It's sold in the comics in the 1950s. It's sold in the slashers in the 1980s, and it continues to be a pretty safe bet if you want to make a movie that people are going to see. Well, sex and violence will get you there.
And didn't I think H.G. Lewis took a what movie did he do? That was the Wizard of Gore.
Wizard of Gore,
Wizard
yeah.
of Gore is,
Wizard of Gore is kind of like that.
Based on that idea.
Yeah, and even to a different extent, Bloodsucking Freaks.
Bloodsucking Freaks. Yes, I thought of you, Mother.
Yeah.
I like it.
Very cool.
I did find out in the back they also had private booths that you could watch the movie in, where you could or watch the show, the play, where you could see out, but the people could not see in. And apparently, couples would go to the shows and take full advantage of that privacy. I don't know whether it was the little sex farces or the blood and guts that got them turned on, but apparently people would actually have to knock on the door and be like, "Are you done in there yet?" And then that's when the people would come out. So anyone who says like, you know, the world's getting so much worse these days and people just don't have more, they never did. Things have always been crazy, and people have always enjoyed weird entertainment.
Can you elaborate on taking full advantage of? Because I'm not quite sure what you meant.
I'm just telling you what the article said. It said they took full advantage of it, and they would lock the doors and people would knock and ask, "Are you done?" Before they would open the doors. So there. Paris, 1920. It only lasted for a couple years. There was protest, shockingly.
Hey, it was the Roaring 20s, as I say.
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the things that pops out to me is that for as notorious as Tales from the Crypt is for some of its content, sex-wise, it's actually very tame.
Usually. Yeah, every now and then.
Every now and then, but I'm just saying, like, in general.
HBO, you know, boobs or something, but you know, there's not a ton.
Like,
yeah,
for what came like within like Game of Thrones, it's like,
oh yeah. There's definitely some nudity, but they usually will. A lot of their sex scenes are implied, or it'll kind of cut to shadows, or what you hear behind a door.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed a lot of times, just when there is a sex scene, it's played for comedy. You know, it's not actually like trying to be sexy. Like in the episode we watched last week, like they're up on top of a coffin while a man's inside it going into the crematorium. It's great. It's a great little scene.
Oh yeah, that seems great.
But they did have that reputation enough that Demon Knight opens with the whole fake Tales from the Crypt episode that is full out what people thought Tales from the Crypt was. So
yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's just the reputation that parents had for the show.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Yeah, this isn't the Red Shoes Diaries.
Well, exactly. I actually there was one bit of trivia I thought was interesting about this episode is the writer of this film was a guy named Miles Berkowitz, who was a struggling actor and writer, and in the late '90s, he wrote and directed and starred in a low budget mockumentary film. I think he made for like $60,000 called 20 Dates that became a big festival hit got distributed by Fox Searchlight, and kind of made a little splash for him, and then he has completely disappeared since.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is that the movie where it's kind of a reality where he's going on he films himself going on 20 dates?
Exactly. He challenged them to go on 20 dates, and then
like in 20 days or something
falls
crazy,
then he ends up falling in love with one of them while he still has the rest of the 20 date challenge to complete. So but I thought that was interesting to to kind of mirror the character in this of the character struggling for his big break and then disappearing, which is kind of what he did.
You just set me on the whole like nostalgia spiral, because I haven't thought about that movie in so long.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people haven't, but yeah, it kind of made a splash and then disappeared.
Okay, I'm gonna go find that.
I'm gonna check that out. Yeah.
I'm curious how that holds up. Okay, and that moves us to our advice section. And Galen, we wanted to have you back on as well to give some acting advice on, like, how to break into the industry, how to kind of get yourself started. What would you tell a young struggling actor aspiring to get in?
Yeah, I mean, related to this because and especially related to this is a big lesson for me is we see Jon Lovitz's character Barry just basically feeling like he hasn't gotten his shot. He has all of this talent and he doesn't have his shot. And I think the biggest thing that I would tell anyone is that the thing to remember is that no one in this industry owes you anything. We're all in here trying to struggling. Everyone's coming, everyone's put their life into this, made incredible sacrifices, and given up everything to pursue their dream. And it's a lot of people would tell me, when you're complaining, it's like no one asked you to be an actor, so you have to be grateful for every opportunity you have, and then just keep working, because again, nobody owes you that big break. No one, it's not like it's, I mean, that's why it's, I tell people, if there's something you enjoy doing just as much, do that instead, because you're not going to come into an industry that's more challenging. It's not like other industries where it's your rate of success is the ratio of success is compared to the amount of work you put into it. It's people struggle, people put their whole lives into it, and sometimes it can be years before you get your first break. And so I think it's you have to love it more than anything, otherwise it's not worth it.
One of my favorite things, or not favorite things, one of the things I always find very interesting is people who, like, in later in life break through as, like, and then they have, like, kind of they like reached a certain stage. I'm trying to think of an example, but like, someone who reaches 50 and suddenly they're getting roles because somehow they fit what casting directors are looking for a 50-year-old.
Yeah, I think a perfect example is this last year, the if any of you saw the movie Sound of Metal, the actor Paul Raci, who played the rehab director, who got nominated for an Oscar after years of playing bit parts, and he was 70 when he got his big break at 70 after years of just playing one or two line roles.
And sometimes the role and the person just have to line up at the right time.
Just lined up, and so and that part was, and in that case, that part was perfect for him because he was because he was a coda, he was a child of deaf adults, and so he so it was that he basically lived his whole life until that right role came for him, and it's like you don't know what's what the fates have in store for you.
So you came up with a really classy example. I was thinking of the old lady from Happy Gilmore, those kind of she suddenly bust out.
Right.
Frances Bay. She was in everything for a while there, just playing an older lady.
The last episode of Tales I was on.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Judy, you're not yourself this morning. She played the witch.
Yeah. So she's one of these people who had a lot of little bit roles, and then all of a sudden in the late 90s, she was in a ton of stuff playing kind of a funky grandma. That was her whole thing for a while. So
there are a couple of
get
those.
Your moment.
A lot of those people actually in another another woman, Ellen Albertini, who was the rapping grandmother in another Adam Sandler movie, Wedding Singer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was one who kind of had her big break in her 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never too late.
Never too late.
No, never too late.
Okay. Anything else we want to discuss before we wrap up? No, we're good.
I got nothing.
I'm good.
Yeah,
All right.
I got
this was
nothing. I'm
great.
just yeah.
Such
Okay.
a great episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Galen, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah, it's great to
Definitely.
come back. You know, as I've said, this is my favorite TV show of all time. So it's great to discuss. I can nerd out about this show endlessly. So always a pleasure.
Oh, we'd love to have you back again too. I'm just talking for all of us. Out of
Yeah,
turn.
well,
It's
for
fine.
sure.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
Galen, where can people follow you, find you? What do you want to plug?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm on the most at Galen Howard, and you can find me search Galen Howard on Twitter. You can find me there too. But yeah, I am out there.
Okay. Well, next week we will be reviewing The Wait. We would really appreciate it if you, our listener, would give us a rating and review on iTunes and a rating on Spotify. And with that, we thank you for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Goodbye. And it's a wrap.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.